There is a loaded phrase in the affidavit that an FBI agent submitted to a federal judge in Florida to obtain a search warrant for Donald Trump's home. It's a phrase that could explain what Lindsey Graham is really personally worried about when he talks about, perhaps hopes for, rioting in the streets. And that phrase is criminal Confederates. On page 30 of the affidavit, the FBI agent writes, "I believe that sealing this document is necessary because the items and information to be seized are relevant to an ongoing investigation, and the FBI has not yet identified all potential criminal Confederates, nor located all evidence related to its investigation. Premature disclosure of the contents of this affidavit and related documents may have a significant and negative impact on the continuing investigation and may severely jeopardize its effectiveness by allowing criminal parties an opportunity to flee, destroy evidence, stored electronically and otherwise, change patterns of behavior, and notify criminal Confederates." In one of his many trips to fawn upon Donald Trump at his Florida home, did Donald Trump ever show Lindsey Graham any documents that he took from the White House after he left the presidency? Was Lindsey Graham a criminal Confederate of Donald Trump's in trying to overturn the presidential election in Georgia? Is that why Lindsey Graham is the first senator in the history of the United States to predict riots in the streets if his friend is indicted? We don't know. The only thing we do know now, for sure, about Lindsey Graham is as long as he continues to live in the darkness of his own personal rock bottom, he will surely continue, as Churchill put it, to fawn upon his conqueror. Leading off our discussion tonight is Andrew Weissman, former FBI General Counsel and former Chief of the Criminal Division in the Eastern District of New York. He's a professor of practice at NYU Law School. And Neal Katyl is with us, former acting U.S. Solicitor General. They are both MSNBC legal analysts. Also with us is Bradley Moss, a national security attorney. And Andrew Weissman, let me begin with you and where the search warrant case stands this week. Why Donald Trump went to shop, apparently, for a judge other than the judge who's been handling the case to try to get a special master appointed to review these documents, and what will develop this week as that judge has ordered so far?
Let me turn to what to expect, because I think tomorrow could be a big day. We know from Attorney General Merrick Garland that he has said that the Department of Justice, as is its policy, is going to speak through its filings. Even in his press conference, we got very little information. And we basically, last Friday, everyone in the press and the public that's following along were waiting for the redacted affidavit to be unsealed. Well, tomorrow is an opportunity for the department to show a little leg, to take your intro about Winston Churchill. There are a lot of lies and misstatements and omissions in the filing, actually the filings, plural, that have been made by Trump and through his counsel. The court has ordered the department to respond to the filing, the whole filing, not just to the request for a special master. And today, the Department of Justice said that it would like 40 pages to respond to both the legal and factual arguments and statements in the brief. And the court agreed to that. So tomorrow, we're obviously not going to learn about classified information or grand jury information or the identity of witnesses just to set everyone's expectations. They're not going to do that. But there are a lot of statements that were made in the brief about how, for instance, Trump was cooperating the whole time, or statements that are, I think, palpably implausible about what happened at the June meeting in Mar-a-Lago with Department of Justice and FBI officials about different statements that were made. And this is a golden opportunity for the department to be forward-leaning, to educate the judge and the public, and to do it through a court filing.
Neal Katyl, why is this being heard before a judge different from the judge who issued the search warrant?
I have no idea, Florence, because that's not the way things are done. So normally the judge who issues the search warrant, if you have a beef with that, you take it up with that judge or perhaps their presiding judge that's overseeing what this magistrate is doing. Here, the Trump team obviously wanted to try and search for a different judge. And even though the magistrate judge that appointed that authorized the search was someone who was appointed in 2018 during President Trump's tenure. So this is not some lefty judge or something like that. And I agree with Andrew entirely that this is a huge strategic miscalculation on Trump's part to make this filing and to ask for a Department of Justice response, because now the department will be able to speak publicly and explain what they are doing and why. And with respect to this request tonight from the department for 40 pages to write their response, I used to be in charge of that decision. Do you ask a judge or a set of judges for a larger number of pages in order to respond to something? You only do so if you've actually got a lot to say, and the department takes it really seriously. And so here, I suspect there's going to be a lot to say tomorrow. And at the end of this is all skirmishing just about whether a special master should be appointed. That's something used to sift through documents about attorney-client privilege. That's not going to delay, I don't think, the ultimate, progress of this case. And it's not going to give Trump any relief. At most, it just means that there'll be some documents protected by executive privilege that Trump doesn't get back. It's just they go to the archives. But the gravamen of what he's being accused of here is not the contents of the documents. It's that he stole federal documents in the first place, which makes a special master thoroughly inapposite. The special master is really about contents. So I don't see this going anywhere. It's a sideshow, but it's one that's going to give the department an enormous opportunity tomorrow.
Bradley Moss, with your experience in criminal cases like this, I want to go back to these phrases that appear in this heavily redacted version of the search warrant that we've had the weekend to study. And that is that phrase, criminal confederates, that is in the same line with including the opportunity to flee. The FBI is saying that some of these criminal confederates would have the opportunity to flee. Presumably it means flee the country to get out of federal jurisdiction. It's not going to do you much good to get to Georgia. And so what are you reading in that description of what the FBI said was at stake in this case?
Yeah, so when I saw that part, what I infer from it is that's referring somewhat to the obstruction angle, sort of what has brought this into a criminal matter in the first place. Because as many of us have said, if this had just been about recovering the documents in the end, it would have been no harm, no foul. If he had turned everything over, it wouldn't have been a problem. The reason there is an issue here is because of the obstruction with respect to these documents, particularly the classified documents. The efforts to relocate, to move about, to conceal those records. That is what's going to get Donald Trump in trouble, and it's the people around him. And this is where the issue of, these various witnesses that have been interviewed and have provided interesting and informative information to the FBI, they have provided, I'm sure, context as to who was going through the documents, what did they know, what instructions were they giving, and why were documents being placed in other parts of Mar-a-Lago? Why did the FBI know that there were going to be records located in places like Donald Trump's personal office at Mar-a-Lago, in his closet, in his bedroom, where sure enough they found classified records? Someone has provided them with this information, and it's the people around Donald Trump who were doing his bidding on that front to relocate it. They're the ones who also face criminal exposure.
Andrew Weissman, with your experience as a prosecutor and as counsel to the FBI, obviously you've seen an awful lot of FBI affidavits like this trying to establish the grounds probable cause for a search warrant. Is opportunity to flee just boilerplate that the FBI throws in there every time?
Well, you know, I think it does appear to be fair. I do think it appears often, but there does have to be a factual predicate for it. So one of the reasons it appears often is because in a lot of these cases, that is exactly one of the concerns. And again, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, and it doesn't have to be that the FBI believes it's, you know, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, but it is set forth as a reason to keep something under seal. Because one of the reasons you want to keep something under seal is so that you're not alerting targets of an investigation as to all of your next steps. And obviously, you're facing a lot of criminal exposure. One of the things that people can do is decide that America has been a great place for them and it's time to leave, because they'd rather be, you know, living in, you know, Cyprus than living behind bars. So it does appear fairly often, but there's usually a reason for it.
And Neal, what do you expect from this judge who was appointed by Donald Trump in terms of ruling in Donald Trump's favor on trying to get someone called a master of some kind to look at these documents?
Well, first, Lawrence, I do want to push back on this whole notion that just because someone's been appointed by a particular president, it means, you know, that we can predict how they're going to act or something like that. I mean, up until President Trump became president and started labeling judges Obama judges or Trump judges, that's not the way we think of the judiciary. And I hope that we can return to something more normal. Here I am a little concerned about this judge who is, initially she raised some questions akin to your first question to me. What is this case doing before me? It's already before a different judge. Why are you filing this? But now it seems like she is growing comfortable with the exercise of her power and jurisdiction over this case. That isn't something I think the department can likely let stand, even though they're not worried about a special master. What I think they have to be worried about is in other cases that you shouldn't be allowed to have defendants forum shop for a different judge if they don't like the current one. So I think that's all going on right now. But at the end of the day, I suspect the judge is going to do the right thing here and say no special master, or if there is a special master, it can't delay these ongoing criminal proceedings.
Neal, Katyl, Andrew Weissman, Bradley Moss, thank you all for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.